President Muhammadu Buhari has joined world leaders in expressing grief over the death of Brazilian soccer legend Edson Arantes de Nascimento, also known as Pele, who died yesterday evening in Sao Paulo hospital aged 82 years. Arguably the world's greatest footballer, Pele won 3 World Cup trophies in 1958, 1962 and 1970. He's credited with scoring a record 1,281 goals during a 21-year-long sterling career, which FIFA named him the Player of the Century in the year 2000. Pele has been treated for colon cancer following a surgery to remove a tumor in September 2021 and had required regular medical treatment. Aaron Akejala tells us more.
Pele, the Brazilian virtuoso, whose captivating skill and athleticism ensured he was universally regarded as one of football's greatest players, has died at the age of 82. Pele, who had a colon tumor removed in 2021, was readmitted to the Albert Einstein Hospital in Sao Paulo in November amidst deteriorating health. A hospital statement on Thursday confirmed the death of our king of football at 3:27 p.m. local time due to the failure of multiple organs, a result of the progression of cancer of colon associated with his previous clinical condition, the hospital said in a statement. A statement from Pele's official Instagram page added, "Inspiration and love marked the journey of King Pele, who peacefully passed on away today. On his journey, Edson chanted the world with his genius in sports, stopped the war, and carried out social work all over the world and spread what he believed most to be the cure for all our problems: love." Brazil's joint all-time record scorer won 3 World Cup as a player, in 1958, in 1962, and in 1970, over a 14-year international career that included 77 goals in 92 appearances for his country. Nicknamed the Black Pearl and the King, Pele was one of only 3 players to have scored in 4 different World Cups. In 1,363 games, he scored 1,281 goals at the time of his retirement in 1977, more than twice as many as his nearest challenger. Born Edson Arantes do Nascimento on the 23rd of October 1940, Pele began his professional career at the age of 15 and made his international debut at the age of 16 a year later. In 1999, he was voted Player of the Century in a poll of Ballon d'Or winners, and Time magazine named him as one of 100 most influential people of the 20th century.
What can I say? Le Roi, the king himself.
Wow. That was a brilliant tribute, by the way, by Aaron, just to say that the legend Pele, named Edson Arantes do Nascimento, is gone at the age of 82 years old after battling colon cancer. He was said to have passed away, as the report indicates, from multiple organ failure at the Albert Einstein Hospital in Sao Paulo. Described by President Barack Obama as one of the greatest to ever play the beautiful game. Some would even call him the greatest. That report details his many achievements in football, but permit me to give my tribute with regards to his personality. So beyond being a football figure, he was also seen as a symbol of friendship and unity. The Brazilian ambassador to the United Nations, when Pele retired, said this about him: Pele played football for 22 years, and in that time, he did more to promote world friendship and fraternity than any other ambassador anywhere. Pele himself understood the role he played as a role model to many young people. Indeed, in Brazil, he was said to have a godlike figure. So he understood the immense responsibility on him as younger boys and girls looked up to him. And he said this about being a role model: "Every kid around the world who plays soccer wants to be Pele. I have a great responsibility to show them not just how to be like a soccer player, but how to be like a man." So he was a total sportsman, an exemplary human being, and a symbol of unity and friendship across nations. The world will definitely miss him. So here is paying tribute to one of the greatest who ever played the football game. also an ambassador of peace. He was given an honorary British knighthood, and also, of course, one of the greatest icons that Brazil has ever produced. As expected, many world leaders have shared their sympathies and mourned him globally. Indeed, in Brazil right now, last night, the iconic buildings of the Maracanã Stadium and Christ the Redeemer statue bore the colors of the Brazilian flag in honor of the legend Pele. We pray that he rests in peace.
Tabati?
Okay, Edson Arantes do Nascimento, popularly known as Pele, a nickname that he got by mispronouncing the name of a player, and then his teammates began to call him Pele. He's clearly the greatest of all times in football. He helped to reinvent football. There was football before him, but of course he took it to another level and established himself as the genius in the game, who advertised Brazilian football and turned it into a model for the international community, and a man who became a source of inspiration and joy to the entire international community. In 2012, FIFA declared him the greatest of all time. Before then, in 1999, the International Olympic Committee declared him as the athlete of the century. Now, he died yesterday at 3:27 p.m. at the Albert Einstein Israeli Hospital in Sao Paulo, in Brazil, as a result of kidney complications and problems with the heart arising from colon cancer, from which he had been diagnosed last year. And he was admitted again into the hospital on 29th November 2022, and we were told that his condition was serious and he had to undergo end-of-life care. And now, yesterday, his daughter announced that he had passed on. The departure is a major miss, it's a major loss for the entire global human community, because in the 20th century and the early 21st century, this is a man who was a symbol. At a time in the 20th century, Pele and Muhammad Ali were the most famous faces on the surface of the human planet. They were the two most popular persons. He began his career very early, having joined the Santos FC at the age of 15 in 1957. And then, of course, later in 1958, he was part of the World Cup, which took place in Sweden. He scored a hat-trick in the semi-final match against France and scored 2 more goals before the end of the tournament. And, of course, Brazil won that World Cup. His performance, his display, the genius was so electrifying that Brazil immediately declared him a national treasure. And the purpose was to prevent, rich clubs in Europe from taking him away. So he remained with FC Santos till 1974 when he retired, having scored for that club 656 goals in 679 matches, and establishing concretely his genius. And of course, FC Santos went around the world with him to showcase him. Now here will be the connection with Nigeria. In 1967, FC Santos was on a playing tour of Nigeria. And this was at the peak of the Civil War, in the middle of the Civil War. And the Civil War had to be suspended for about 24, 48 hours so that Nigerians could watch Pele, the legendary Pele, play. There was a match in Lagos with the Green Eagles, as they were then known, and it was a draw, 2-2. Of course, Pele scored the 2 goals against Nigeria at the time. There was another match in Benin, which Brazil won 2-1. In 1978, Pele was back in Nigeria, now with a Brazilian team called Fluminense, and people who have the photographs will remember him wearing the babariga. So he meant a lot to many people, and his connections with the Nigerian people was not alone. It was the global symbol for the beauty of the football. He retired from Santos in 1974, but he was then called back to duty when he wanted to join the New York Cosmos At that time, the New York Times reported that he was the highest paid footballer in the world. He was paid about $7 million. But eventually, he would retire in 1977. And there was an exhibition match between New York Cosmos and FC Santos. And in that particular match, he played the first half with New York Cosmos and played the second half with FC Santos. But what we know is that that was his last ever game. But even after retirement, he remained the major reference. As Ronaldo has pointed out in a tribute, the reference for the past, for today, and for tomorrow. And of course, he's gone down in the Guinness Book of Records as that player with the highest number of goals, over 1,000 goals. But what is even more remarkable about the example of Edson Arantes do Nascimento is that he remains for all times a source of inspiration to generations of footballers. And it is not surprising that Gary Lineker, Kylian Mbappe, and other players, Ronaldo, and all of them, Messi, have paid tribute to this man, who is one of the major icons, not just of Brazilian footballing, but also of the world in terms of his personality. As has been pointed out, he was UNESCO ambassador. He supported charity works. He supported the Brazilian poor. And up to the last moment, even in the recent World Cup, he gave out messages of hope and love. And what, lessons can we draw from his example? That, whatever you put your mind to, if you excel at it, of course, the world will notice, irrespective of race, irrespective of color, and as individuals in any profession that we may have chosen, distinction is what is important. His own area is football. He has had successors. Diego Maradona will be one of his successors, a young man who died before him, but who will be encouraged. Lionel Messi, these are people coming in his footsteps. Cristiano Ronaldo, and also, of course, Johan Cruyff and the likes of Kylian Mbappe, Marcus Rashford, Bukola Saka, who gave us great hopes about the future of football. So he redefined soccer. He made soccer popular, not just in his country, but also in the United States and also in the world. There is no doubt that Pele will be remembered for all times. His legacy will live forever. Ure, obrigado.
Thank you. What a great way to end it, Dr. Abadi. But the truth is, who is Pele? I know I will not have enough time to pay proper tribute to Pele, but Pele was the king. And like the French president tweeted yesterday, le jeu, the game, le roi, the king, l'éternité, for eternity. And that's exemplified what Pele was. Pele was named Edison. Why? Because few years before his birth, electricity came to his little village in Brazil. And it was named after Thomas Edison. And he did electrify football. Pele started out life as a shoe shiner in a railway station in Brazil. But what really marked him separately from football was when Brazil lost a World Cup final and his father was crying profusely. And it was said that Pele told his father that, don't worry, I'll win you the World Cup. And that was why Pele was famously crying in '58 when Brazil won the first World Cup as an 18-year-old. But he never stopped. A diminutive man, a short man, his center of gravity was outstanding. Isn't it wonderful that the three football legends, Pele, Diego Armando Maradona, and Messi, were all 5-footers? Pele stood tall and towering at a diminutive height of 5'8". Diego Armando Maradona 5'5", Messi 5'7". And when you look at these three stars, they blazed the trail in football. Pele went ahead to challenge himself in the '62 World Cup, win another World Cup, but the prominent one was in the 1970s, when everybody didn't give him a chance in Mexico. And out there, he set out the Azteca Elites and won to get a great side of the Italian national team. And it was famous that Pele said in the dressing room, I am alive, I'm not dead, because a lot of people thought his career was all gone. Pele was a peacemaker, a bridge builder, advocated for education. That's the humanity of Pele. He became sports minister from '94 to '98, and he pushed for the right of education and also people in the sporting world. It took a lot of diplomatic push to get Pele out of Brazil. In fact, it took Henry Kissinger to beg the president of Brazil to let Pele come play in America, to popularize football when the New York Cosmos started. And if you know the story of the New York Cosmos, it was set up by the founder of Warner Communications, then Stanley Ross, who popularized football, and Pele brought amazing appeal of football to America. When he played his testimonial match at the Maracanã, I had over 180,000 people come watch Pele play. Pele was so famous that even when Pele was injured, over 20,000 people just came to watch the injured Pele sitting on the touchline without playing. That's who Pele was. He had grace, he had style. He exemplified what the beautiful game, Jogo Bonito, is all about. But most importantly, Pele had grace, always had a smile on his face. Pele set the world on fire. He has done his bit. He has left the baton for all of us in the world. He cannot be forgotten in the kingdom of football because he's indeed the king. Like they say, the old king is dead. Pele is gone. Long live the king. An Abuja High Court has restrained the State Security Service, SSS, and other security agencies from arresting or detaining the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN Governor, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, over alleged Trump-John charges bordering on terrorism and financing. Justice Hassan made the restraining order while ruling on an ex parte application filed by the Incorporated Trustee, a form of accountability and good leadership. The application has the Attorney General of the Federation, Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Inspector General of Police, State Security Service, and Central Bank of Nigeria as respondents. The court in its ruling agreed that the applicant's lawyer, Emeka Ozo, and the SEN, that the continued harassment of Emefiele over trumped-up allegation of terrorism and sundry offenses illegal and constitute a breach of his fundamental rights, rules of African Charter, Constitution, amongst others. A lot to talk about this case, are you?
Yes, I'm glad that we have an update on this particular case. We talked about this about a week ago with the alleged terrorism charges that the DSS, Department of State Services in Nigeria, where the secret police were going to have approached the court to bring in the governor of the CBN. And now Justice Eme Hassan of the High Court of the Federal Capital Territory has restrained the State Security Service and 4 others from arresting or detaining the Central Bank of Nigeria's governor, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, what they've called alleged trumped-up charges bordering on terrorism financing. 2 words that stick out in this judgment is that the judge held that the DSS acted wrongfully and illegally. And as analysts and human rights lawyers have come out to respond to this judgment, the judgment is restraining them from further actions against the CBN governor, saying that he should be allowed to exercise his rights and also to do his work. We posed the question when this news broke earlier, which was, why is the DSS what does the DSS have against the Central Bank of Nigeria's governor? Is it with regards to the monetary policies, which is within his rights as constitutionally provided for him to take on? It'll be interesting to understand the reasoning or perhaps the foundation of these, shall we say, alleged allegations and attacks against the CBN governor. What we are now hoping is, beyond the ruling of Justice Eme Hassan of the Abuja Federal High Court in Abuja, is that the rule of law would be respected. We are hoping that the DSS and other agencies would allow the CBN governor do his job, and in terms of monitoring and providing monetary policies to regulate the economy. It's very important. We will be, the Nigerians are watching. It is important that beyond this ruling, Nigerians are also part of the upholding of this ruling. And so, well done to the court, and we look forward to even more with regards to upholding the rights and liberties of public officials.
Dr. Batu?
On the issue of the CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele, we have 2 cases before us now. Both ex parte applications. The first ex parte application was filed by the DSS on December 7, seeking the leave of court to arrest the CBN governor on charges of terrorism financing. But the Court of Justice T.S. Toshaw on December 9, treating the case expeditiously, decided that the case had lacked merit due to lack of evidence, and that in any case, the DSS had no right, under the law, coming to the court of law to seek permission to arrest the CBN governor, who, by the way, under Section 308 of the Nigerian Constitution, does not enjoy immunity. However, Justice Tosho referred the DSS to the President of Nigeria to seek the permission of the President, considering the fact that any kind of legal proceeding against the CBN governor could affect economic stability and financial relations and investment interests in Nigeria. Now, it's therefore interesting that in another case filed by the incorporated trustees of the Forum for Accountability and Good Governance, these were the plaintiffs in the second ex parte application to the Federal High Court in Abuja. And what they were asking for is that the continued harassment, threats being issued against the CBN governor, his intimidation should be declared by the court vindictive, unwarranted, and abrasive. And what the Court of Justice M.A. Hassan has done in this case is just to toe the same line as the Court of Justice Tosho. And so both rulings are in pari materia, that is, they're the same, they are on all fours, okay? They've been very consistent. But what is interesting in this second case is the fact that the EFCC was joined in this new case, that's the major difference now, as fifth respondent. And in appearing in this particular case before Justice M.A. Hassan, the EFCC, who were told in the reports, asked to be discharged from the case because the EFCC lawyers argued that there is established procedure for the removal of the CBN governor, and that in their own case, they do not have anything against the CBN governor, and so they cannot be party to the case. Well, I've not seen a copy of the judgment to know the details of the ruling. But what we know is that Justice M.A. Hassan, like Justice T.S. Tosho behind him, before him, dismissed the plan by the DSS to arrest the CBN governor. So these are the facts of the matter. What remains is for the Department of State Services to respect the ruling of the court. Just as we have argued that no individual is above the rule of law, no institution in Nigeria is also above the rule of law. Nobody is above the rule of law. If the DSS feels further convinced that it has a case, the option that is available to it with these two rulings, by the courts of Justice Tosho and Justice M.A. Hassan, is for the DSS to go on appeal. That's the only option that is available to it. And we are hoping that the DSS will not violate the rule of law, because the Department of State Services is itself a creation of the law. It's a law enforcement agency, and it cannot be seen to recourse to any other option other the option of law. This is the matter as I see it.
One thing is certain. All of a sudden, a policy was made that when you check the empiricals of the policy to cut that potential to be able to move money around, then all of this backlash is happening. Let us go back to the facts. Over 90% of Nigerians don't have up to 500,000 naira in their bank accounts. So when the CBN puts up a withdrawal limit, we understand it might affect small businesses, but it is in line with the data that is available to them. But because it's political season, we are seeing reactions. After Justice Tosho ruled in the first place, I don't see any reason why we need to press this further. But the truth is, this is Nigeria, where people violate court orders. And you cannot have a country that you want to run on the rule of law, but you violate court orders. The court has ruled again. Leave Mr. Emefiele alone. You took your facts to the court, you had nothing. The fact said nothing could be substantiated. The court has spoken again. Leave Emefiele alone.